Welcome to the Birth Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Hof, BSN RN. I am a wife, a mother of two, and a nurse specializing in the care of women and newborns. In this podcast, we will share powerful journeys of birth givers with the goals of lifting the veil on the birth experience, healing through sharing, and beginning an open conversation to strengthen trust and promote transparency between birthing people and healthcare providers. Hello. Today I have with me Alison Rieke. Alison is a mother of two, and she is here to share her birth stories with us. Alison experienced HELLP syndrome during one of her pregnancies, which is a rare medical condition of pregnancy. The acronym HELLP stands for hemolysis, elevated liver enzymes, and low platelet count. Alison will be sharing her symptoms and her experience, as well as her wisdom and insight. After her second, Alison made a crucial career pivot and partnered with a health and wellness company, which allowed her to work from home. Alison, welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Absolutely, Kelly. Thanks for asking. I was not expecting to have any issues at all because this was my second pregnancy. My first was without a hitch, really. And at 36 and a half weeks, I had been doing, I think, all the right things. I was working out 5 or 6 times a week. I was doing yoga. I was eating really well. I was trying not to gain as much baby weight as I did the first time around. And so it was really unexpected that I started having these preeclampsia symptoms that I feel like often go undiagnosed because they are just more extreme normal pregnancy symptoms. And so I couldn't believe it happened to me. And it was probably one of the scariest moments of my life going through that. But I'm here to share because my hope is that it helps other women recognize those symptoms earlier on.
Yeah, definitely. So you talk about how it was a shock because you had been so healthy during this pregnancy. So one of the things about HELLP syndrome is that it's not necessarily anything you did wrong. So I think a lot of moms have this feeling, it's mom guilt about maybe they brought this on themselves. Did your doctor do anything or did your healthcare providers do anything to help you work through that?
No.
No.
If they did, I don't really remember because it was such a blurry time. I mean, the magnesium you get makes everything sort of just foggy anyway. But the reason I even knew about it at all was because 2 days prior, one of my best friends went through the exact same thing.
Wow.
And she delivered her baby at, I believe, 24 weeks. And it's one of those moments that's just, to me, just a total God wink that she, even from her hospital room, told me her story because I feel like I would have ignored my symptoms if I didn't have it in the back of my mind that, hey, this could be serious. This could be something that like my friend had, because it was extremely unexpected for her. In her case, her pregnancy was very, very early. Her son was very early. And I was just completely blown away. I had to leave work. I was sobbing so hard. I got a bloody nose, but also that was devastating for my friend for her first pregnancy. And so the fact that she told me, I don't think she told very many people what was going on with her at that point in time, but she told me. And the night that I was starting to experience my own symptoms 2 days later, my husband was about to go on a work trip. And I just know me. I know I would have taken some Tylenol and some Gatorade and just gone to bed because that was the advice they'd given me a few weeks earlier when I started getting those pains. I had gone in and talked to my doctor about it because they were concerned, I think, about preeclampsia, and I did get tested more regularly.
Yeah. And that's so interesting that you, luckily, I guess we'd say, had a friend that was going through the same thing because this is such an extremely rare condition. I mean, you know, I think everybody hears things that happen to other people and they're like, oh, they start diagnosing themselves. But it's so important to take some of those things seriously during pregnancy because some of those symptoms can start off really subtle. And did your husband end up staying home from the trip you went in that night?
He did. Yeah. I was about to drive myself because I knew it was that serious. I grabbed a garbage bag because I was so nauseous, the garden size. It was gigantic. And so I have this and he's like, okay, you're serious. I will drive you. You're not driving yourself. Finally. But it was like 2 a.m. and he was not thrilled. But it was a little bit like a scene out of The Exorcist. I was in the worst pain, upper abdominal pain, and my reaction to that apparently was throwing up. And so it was terrifying.
Yeah. So you've described some of the symptoms, which a lot of us brush off as normal symptoms of pregnancy. Not necessarily the right upper quadrant pain, the nausea, and did you have you said headache?
I had headaches, and one time driving down I-25 on my way home, the light was such a bright light that everything sort of went fuzzy and white, and I was like, oh my gosh, should I pull over? I'm driving,
Yeah, those are definitely preeclampsia symptoms. Bright light and the visual disturbances. But did you have migraines before? Was that something that you'd experienced before?
I had them about quarterly before. So
it was really easy to brush off those symptoms.
Yeah. Especially when you have a 3-year-old already, when you're busy with work, you're commuting an hour each way. And I think we're often told just to like toughen up. But what I did feel felt more extreme. And I was like, well, maybe it's because I'm older. Now I'm advanced maternal age. I don't know. What was I? 35, I suppose. And I had a 3-year-old. So it was very easy to write off.
Right. And you knew about these symptoms because of your friend or because your doctor had warned you about these?
It was really because of my friend. I remember I had the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and I never wanted to open the scary chapters of all the things that could go wrong because I didn't want to put that in my head. But at the same time, it was pretty naive because it's really important to know those symptoms.
I feel like we have this cultural conundrum. We have lots of people looking up symptoms and trying to diagnose themselves. We also have women trying to tough it out and brush it off as normal experiences of pregnancy. And then we also have this whole situation where we don't really talk about the hard things. And so I feel like we're maybe just setting ourselves up for failure. If we don't have this understanding going in, there's so much to know about your health and about pregnancy. And you get to see your doctor for 15-minute visits every couple weeks. And they hand you this huge packet of information, and that's all the insurance company covers. And thank you very much. Please read through this. It's so hard. So I just think it's so important that we talk about this and that we share our experiences and that women understand that they're not alone and that it's not this big secretive club. It's not Fight Club.
I think women don't often talk about it because we want more joiners. We want more people in our club. Like motherhood is fun for the most part. But you also don't want to scare anybody away from doing it. But it's like as soon as you get pregnant, then you start hearing the stories. And if you spend time around other women who are moms, then you start hearing those things. And I was in a workplace where I was the first person to ever be pregnant there. And they had no nursing area. I was like, I don't know I'm going to go back to work.
Yeah.
They're not really accommodating. So I wasn't at that point in my career at a place where I had any mothers around me, but I have a really good group of girlfriends and several of them were moms.
So let's talk about, I guess we can go back to the medical aspect of it. There's so much surrounding a normal pregnancy and then a difficult pregnancy and then the whole going back to work and just all of that. What was the most challenging part of this whole process and journey?
Are you pregnant and planning a hospital birth? You don't need a birth plan. You need a birth vision. In my opinion, birth plans set you up for failure. Yep, I said it. Hear me out before you turn off this podcast. You may think that by downloading a generic birth plan, it means you're in control. The truth is, it's not that simple. No one can control exactly how their birth will go. There are way too many variables. What every pregnant person wants is to walk into the hospital pregnant and to walk out with a healthy newborn in their arms. The journey in between is the murky part. It's hard to know what issues might come up that need to be addressed. If you focus your energy on a birth vision rather than giving your power to a birth plan, you can empower yourself to make the best choices for you and your baby. That's why you need to get into my Empowered Hospital Birth program. As a labor nurse and mindset coach, I can help guide you through the process of maintaining the calm autonomy that will help you achieve the birth vision you desire. In my Empowered Hospital Birth program, I will help you identify the source of anxiety you have surrounding hospital birth, fill in knowledge gaps to make sure that you are fully informed and confident, learn key phrases so you can better communicate with your medical team, emotionally process your fears so that they don't hold power over you. Go to kellyhof.com/empowered to book a free 30-minute private birth vision call, where we will identify your top fears and must-haves and gain clarity on exactly how you want to feel in the birth space. That's KELLYHOF.com/empowered. I'm honored to be a part of your birth journey.
I really feel like the hardest part for me was that it was just so unexpected, because I felt like prior to getting pregnant and prior to this example of what happened, I thought I was doing the right things.
Well, you were.
And maybe I was, right? But like you said, it wasn't. Maybe it's something in my genetics. Who knows, right? I still don't know that much about preeclampsia, really.
Mm-hmm. No one does.
There's
theories.
Shameful. I'm 8 years out. I used to do the preeclampsia walk here in Denver. So I used to be really involved with that. But I think the hardest thing for me was really that it happened at all. And then I knew other women that it happened to. My friend I told you about already, and another friend. And we were all at elevation. And I always wondered if that had something to do with it, potentially. Mountains. But I think the hardest part is that there are so many unanswered questions. And I feel like if this was something that happened to men, there would be more answers.
Wouldn't there? And the other difficult aspect of that is that there's all this ethical and moral question about the ability to do any kind of testing on pregnant women, because the baby can't consent. And then what are we testing for? There's some thought that preeclampsia and anything surrounding it, maybe even HELLP syndrome, has to do with the mother's reaction to the placenta, that maybe there's some antigen in the placenta or some of the fetal DNA that's the mother's bloodstream is reacting to and immune system is reacting to, but we don't really know.
That's very interesting, because my doctor looked at my placenta and she was like, that's interesting. Are they supposed to be like round, like a plate?
Yeah.
Okay. She said mine was like the shape of like a T-bone steak or like a ribeye. She said it was
Did you eat it?
Yeah,
let's not get into that.
That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. So what we see, though, we do see placental changes, and we do typically look at the placentas of women that have preeclampsia. If there's a reason, or HELLP syndrome, if there's a reason, if there's some sort of disorder of pregnancy, we do tend to study those placentas. So it was the shape that your doctor was talking about.
That's what she said to me. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, if I had like been with it, I would have been like, maybe like submit that to science or something, like, if there's something that dramatic about it, then maybe don't just like throw it away.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if it was the shape necessarily. I guess I'd have to see it, because there might have been some other stuff going on with it. Because we typically, when we're looking for it, we're looking for like calcification. So you'll see like big chunks of looks like salt chunks or cheese or something like that, where the placenta is calcifying. And that's usually kind of an indication that something's going wrong there. Anyway, we're going down a rabbit hole on what placentas look like. But the point is, we know what the risk factors are, but we don't entirely know. And I'm really interested to see if there's anything about like what you said about elevation, because I don't live in a high elevation, but we still, in both places that I practice, we still see preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome, but it's rare. So I guess I'd wonder what the rates are in higher elevations. That's really interesting.
And I know my HELLP syndrome was, I believe they called it acute. So it wasn't as extreme as either one of my friends who had it, but still, even to hear that that's even acutely terrifying. I feel like I know a lot of people, and some are family members, so maybe there is a genetic factor to it. Obviously, I don't know, and I've kind of stepped away from like really looking into it like I kind of was before. I think when things happen to you, you become your own advocate and try to figure out like why. And not that I planned on having any more children, but if I wasn't quite done, if I went in number 3, then it would have been really scary for me to go for another pregnancy because of what I'd been through. So
Yeah.
I know my other friend, the first one I mentioned, she had subsequent pregnancies that were very healthy. And so it is possible, but I just feel like there's so much that we don't know. And so I'm really grateful to you for bringing these issues to light.
Yeah, I really feel like most people don't know them. Like most of the moms that I see that come in for preeclampsia have no idea that this is, I mean, they're starting to understand because we have these fun little handouts now that talk about maternal early warning signs and things that we need to be paying attention to, and they're a little bit more user-friendly than what we had before, the big packets that we used to hand out. But still, there's just so much that moms need to know.
Your list together and a nursery if you're lucky, and try to maintain your family life and like relationship with your husband and your other child or children. It's just a lot to manage at the same time. So you're trying to like find yourself in it.
Yeah. So let's go back to that night where you realized something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You said that your husband took you to the hospital. At 36 weeks, you're not necessarily planning on arranging for childcare for your other.
No.
Talk to me about that.
We have really good neighbors who are like family to us. Yeah. And so it was a very quick phone call. And we got my older daughter taken care of. And then my mom, who's also an RN, she's just the kind of mom that you call and she'll be there as soon as she can, even though she's 8 hours away. So she drove overnight instantly and was there by the time I knew what was going on, really, like where we kind of got settled in the room. And then my daughter wasn't born until the next evening, almost midnight. It was like 11:40 something at night. So she was born on May Day, but almost born on Grandparents' Day.
Oh, that's the other fun aspect of motherhood. It's, you don't get to plan for anything. Your baby and your body are in charge. And you always have to have a backup, which it sounds like you have a village, which is amazing. Were you living in the neighborhood that you're living in now?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we've been in this house since I was pregnant with my first daughter.
Yeah. Okay, I was going to say, because that's a good way to establish a village. Yeah, I do see a lot of parents coming in with this is another challenge, with no backup care, which is understandable because we're not always planning for these things. And you can't necessarily have someone there at the drop of a hat. And sometimes people move and there's just all these extenuating circumstances. And yet most of the time when you go into the hospital, it's a locked unit. They don't allow additional visitors. So a child needs to be attended to by an adult, and it can't be the mother who is sick. It can't be the nurses because they have to attend to emergencies. So then it's like, what do you do? And then plus COVID this past couple of years, I know that wasn't your situation, but it's just become more and more challenging to the point where like nobody has backup and people are ignoring symptoms, and we're just going so downhill and making it so much harder for moms. It's just so.
In your head, know the maternal death rate for
I
HELLP
don't.
or
No. I know that it's like 4 to 12% of women that have preeclampsia can develop HELLP. Preeclampsia is not as rare. It happens. I see it every day, but then I work at high risk centers, so I have a skewed view, but I have not seen very much HELLP syndrome. I think I've maybe seen 2 or 3 cases in the past 8 years that I've been practicing. So it's pretty rare. They may have been on our floor and maybe I just didn't take care of them. But personally, that's the actual diagnosis of HELLP, I think, have been 2 or 3. So,
also, interesting, I think, to know is both of my daughters were IUGR. And so, but my first was born at 40 weeks in a day. And then my second was 36 and a half weeks. So they're just little. We're also very little.
They're little, but that is associated with preeclampsia and HELLP. So that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I knew these things. I wish we'd have answers. I wish we could study it. But so then let's talk about some of the treatments that you had. So first of all, did you have high blood pressure with this?
I did. I don't remember the numbers.
Okay. So did they have to treat the blood pressure itself, or did they just treat with magnesium? Do you remember? This is getting really technical.
I know there was magnesium drip because at first it was like, I felt like I was laying on a beach, like with the sun, everything just felt warm and calm. I don't know if I had anything else. They gave me a cocktail of something. I think it was like Pepto-Bismol and something, nausea. But other than that, I think they were just trying to prevent from any seizures, right?
Right, of course. Yeah. So that's why we use the magnesium. And then it's interesting that was the feeling that you had, because a lot of people don't enjoy it. A lot of people don't enjoy it. So I'm glad that you had a positive magnesium experience.
At first. And then I was like, let me get up. I want to get out.
Yeah.
My baby in the NICU.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Afterwards. Did you have to be on magnesium afterwards?
I think for a little while longer. My husband had taken a video of her in the NICU, and I got to see her and like hear her little squeaks. And that was probably that was the hardest thing, was to not have her with me immediately. And she was just so teeny and squeaky, and she's 8, but she still makes those same noises. And it just reminds me of that time. But she's a fighter. She is. And just awesome. But those memories of being in there, I don't remember the treatments. I just felt like all I cared about is that they were taking good care of her. And I was like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Whatever. This is like, not let this happen again. And, you know, whatever I can do to like be healthy and not have this happen anymore. Great. Yeah,
for sure. So you'd had a baby before. You had a normal delivery with your first, and you didn't have to have a C-section with the second. You had a normal delivery. Let's talk about kind of your expectations with either the first or the second when you went to the hospital. Like what did you feel like it was going to be? And then what was it?
Our first daughter was born during March Madness, and we're a KU basketball family. So it felt like just like very fun. My mother-in-law told me that she had playing cards. Like it was kind of like
Of course she did.
I felt a little bit misled. We were watching basketball, but by the time I got induced with my first pregnancy, the contractions came on so intensely that I was like, I don't even know how to breathe anymore. This is so hard. Like I had done the pregnancy class. I had tried to do all the right things along the way. And I was like, this is rough. Like it was beyond rough. And so I was like, there's no playing cards. Like, let's just try not to pass out, because how do you breathe when the contractions are so strong and so intense?
When your whole body is contracting and there's no space for breathing.
It's just a little bit laughable what you prepare for versus what you get sometimes. And I guess it's best to be prepared, because it could have been nice, but like when you are induced, obviously the contractions come on quick and strong. My epidural was quite a relief. I remember seeing the needle, and I don't know, it was like, just let me have it if that's going to make this go away. And so after I had the epidural, because I kind of wanted to see like how far my body could go. I was like, we're made for this.
Right.
Ran a marathon. You know, I can do hard things. However, it was just too much. But by the time it was actually time to push and on all of that, it did feel festive and happy again. I was able to have a mirror and see her, you know, see that whole process. Then they were worried that she wasn't coming out and that her heart rate sped up. And so they had to use the vacuum to help suck her out.
Yep.
Pull her out, essentially. And I was like, do whatever you need to do. After all this, I do not want to have an emergency C-section.
Yeah.
So, but like, even with that, like my mom was in the room. I wanted her to be there. My husband was there. It was very happy, joyful, wonderful. My in-laws came into town as soon as they could. So it felt like a great experience. We actually checked out of the hospital early because we were so confident in our parenting abilities. I don't know why. We're nuts. And we wanted to watch basketball at home.
Yeah, I wanted to hear more about that part. You did mention that whole checking out early. How'd that go? Did you have people with you?
I will never forget the look on Andrew's face. Like, oh my God, what did we do? And looking at me for guidance. And I'm like, I have absolutely no idea either. I just went through something major. So I will never forget the look on his face. And it just makes me giggle, because I would never recommend checking out early. If you take all the time you need in the hospital to sleep, to rest, to be cared for, to be watched, labor and delivery nurses are amazing.
So are postpartum nurses.
All nurses are amazing. And at least the experiences that I had at Rose Hospital was just, they were pros, like for both. And then actually when it was my second pregnancy, I expected a lot of that same thing, even with the preeclampsia and HELLP. I did not realize the severity still.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and my husband were in the room again, but this time the nurses were checking on him because they were worried that he was going to pass out, because he was just standing there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, no, don't pay any attention to me. I'll be fine. And then my mom, I just remember her praying over me too, which was just really scary. The room went from, I think 3 or 4 people in it to like maybe 20, 22.
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing thing to watch when you're kind of out of it and like what happens with the magnesium. But it just like a dream-like state to me.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody had a job. It was very quiet and machine-like in a way, just like everybody knew exactly what to do. And I just remember how quiet it was because, oh gosh, this is a really crazy part of it too. Sloan was trying to come out. She was facing the right way and everything, right position, not breech. But then the doctor thought, well, what am I seeing? She was like, maybe she flipped. Maybe she's breached now. And she was trying to come up like with her cheek.
Oh my gosh. Of course she was.
So she was like just breaking her head on, I think, my pelvic bone, and just almost had an emergency cesarean because she just wasn't coming out right. And then she was bleeding, so she had to be resuscitated. So she was a little bit gray when she came out and not crying. And that was awful, awful, awful to see.
Yeah.
And so that was when I remember just everything, just watching everybody do their jobs and praying. And then when I finally heard her cry, it was like this sigh of relief.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I didn't care so much about me. I was like, just take care of my baby.
Yeah. Yeah. It all just like everything goes away in your head except for that one sound that you're listening for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. First of all, it sounds like you had a spectacular hospital that you delivered in, and that the staff was very well trained, because just the fact that everybody seemed, like a well-oiled machine, that's such a relief. I've heard a lot of women talk about the sudden influx of people into the room. It sounds like it might have been somewhat calming for you. It felt like suddenly you knew that everybody was there to take care of you.
Everybody had one specific job, and it wasn't like when you watch ER or any show, it's like all these orders being shouted. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like that at all. It was just like everybody seemed very confident in doing exactly what they needed to do in that moment.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely not supposed to be a big dramatic thing like in ER. And the best practice is to give everybody a specific job. So that's amazing. That sounds like you had a very prepared hospital. You've been through so much. You had Sloan in the NICU, and you're still hanging out in labor and delivery, and you have a baby or a 3-year-old at home, which is still to me, that's still a baby. How do you wrap your head around all that? Where do you go from there?
I mean, it makes me think that like counseling should be a required part of this, and covered by insurance. But it wasn't. So you are just sort of left there in a puddle of emotions and a puddle of breast milk and,
and everything else comes out.
Everything. And then you're just sort of left to figure it out. Like I said, I have a really strong support system, really great family, really great husband. And I'm a strong person also. Yeah. So I think some of the strongest people get some of the hardest challenges so that they will share stories and help others.
Yeah.
But one thing that I was nervous about for a long time, and it really affected my desire to go back to work or not, was that my doctor warned me that because Sloan was without oxygen for such a long time at birth, I don't even know how long it actually was. It felt like forever, but maybe it was about almost a minute or so, that she might have some learning disabilities or different things like that. And so I think I had a lot of extra anxiety about that for a long time. She was a preemie as well, so she wasn't as expressive as my first. Mm-hmm. She took longer to do the things that I thought were normal because I only had one other pregnancy to compare it to. Mm-hmm. So I did a lot of comparing And now that they're 8 and 11 now, their personalities are just so different. And it's so funny. They're just totally different people. And I don't really think it affected her that I can tell, because she's incredibly bright, inquisitive, just like the most creative little thing. And who knows, maybe I could have had a genius, but she's incredibly bright and just a joy. So they both are.
These are a lot of things to navigate for new moms.
It is. And then the hormones.
Also that.
And then the decision to go back to work or not. And what my husband and I ultimately decided on was that I was going to do an extended maternity leave while I kind of figured things out. And then I found a work from home opportunity that was the right fit, helped me feel better and gave me a plan B. So I didn't have to then make that hard decision that so many women have to make to go back to work, to leave your babies, to pay, in Denver at the time, it was $3,000 a month for 2 in Montessori daycare. So I was like, if I cannot spend basically almost all my check on childcare while I'm doing something that really isn't fueling my passion. I mean, I liked it. I liked it a lot, but I just found more purpose in what I am doing now.
But I feel like
important to know there are groups like the Preeclampsia Foundation. They do a walk annually in most big cities. It is a great community. It is a great community for support and information. So that was something that I leaned on. And I also shared with people who were pregnant, just say, like, don't ignore your symptoms. And I have been active on social media sharing my story.
You have,
because, I think like there's power in sharing stories, and there's power in information, and not being like I wanted to be, like an ostrich with my head in the sand. But there's power in knowing the possibilities so that you can tell if something is off in your body. And it comes down to really trusting your gut and trusting your intuition, which I think mothers have a heightened state of that because it's not just about us.
Yeah, totally. I feel like I could talk to you for hours about this. Like we could come up with solutions.
Well, I really enjoyed this. If you think of more questions that come up, we can definitely do a part 2.
Of course. My goal is to just have women hear some of these stories and either feel completely heard or start to feel prepared and understand that let's maybe expand our village. Let's make it a village of women all over the world and just reach out and help each other. So thank you so much, Allie. I really appreciate you coming here.
Thank you.
Do you have questions that you wish a labor nurse could answer? As your due date approaches, do you wish you could pick someone's brain about all the things that might happen during your labor? When you meet with your OB or midwife, do you forget your questions in the moment? Do you feel like you need someone to take more time to walk you through what might happen in the hospital and how to truly mentally prepare? You're in luck because I'm offering this as a free service in 2023. To get details on how to schedule a free session with me, email me at birthjourneysrn@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for tuning into my podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. Don't forget to share the podcast with a friend who can benefit from the valuable insights that we share here. And if you could take a moment to leave a 5-star rating and review, it would mean the world to me. If you're ready to work one-on-one with me to embark on a transformational journey towards a confident and empowered hospital birth experience, go to kellyhof.com/empowered and enroll in my Empowered Hospital Birth Coaching Program. Together, we'll create a roadmap to a birth experience that you'll cherish forever. That's KELLYHOF.com/empowered. Let's make your birth experience extraordinary.